On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Good morning, everyone. You're watching Import Export here on Ticker. I'm your host, Lawrence Christophels. Thanks for joining us again this week. Another important and eventful week for all of us here in Australia, but also around the world with the impact of coronavirus. So today's show, we're bringing you a whole range of industry experts to get you updated, keep you updated about all the latest changes and how it impacts international trade, supply chain, and logistics. So I'm going to kick off straight away. He's been on our show earlier, previously, Zoran Kostadinoski from CBFCA, and we're joined now by Zoran to talk about a whole range of updates. Thanks, Zoran, for joining me. How are you?
Good morning, Lawrence, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm well, as you can see, working from home today, like every other Australian, doing our bit.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think it's definitely a whole new world that we're living in with remote working, and it's good to see that you're safe and well, mate. So thanks for joining us. I wanted to kick off, Zoran. Obviously, with the CBFCA, you're at the cold face of all the border control and all these sort of things. What's the latest for yourself from air and sea? What's the current impact on COVID-19 here in Australia?
Yeah, look, the latest confusion in industry is about with lockdowns. There's a lot of fear about what is considered essential. Are businesses going to be operational? And what I can share with the listeners is that freight and logistics is considered as an essential service. There's a lot of industry bodies and stakeholders and companies lobbying for that. And as we have seen around the world, even during a lockdown or increased restrictions, essential services, freight supply chains are operating. Yes, they will be impacted. They will be a little bit slower because of all the restrictions. But at this point, we have seen that the supply chain is operating to deliver essential goods and services to the consumers.
And what are the type of restrictions that are currently in place? And is there any sort of talk or rumours about what may increase from a restriction point of view?
Well, we have seen the travel restriction has had a significant impact on the aviation industry. What we are seeing at the moment, because aviation is critical to moving essential goods, a lot of the airlines are converting some of the passenger aircrafts to move freight. We have seen an increase of air freight charters. A lot of the big companies and also freight forwarders are providing charter services. Capacity is very, very low. However, there are services that are operating, so to moving these critical goods to the consumers.
And I'm guessing that increases the lead times as well for these typical overnight domestic transport or even international cargo, with all these reduced number of services and separate charter flights, that the lead times plus the cost is probably seriously impacted as well.
Definitely, lead time and cost. While there are services, there's also airline sort of restrictions. Some airports have different restriction. The International Air Transport Association is pushing globally for governments to provide support to the aviation industry, because they believe that aviation saves lives. So if you can get the medical goods to the market quickly, because there is a significant demand, we need to make sure that all the complex issues that are around different countries, different airports, they are resolved to allow movement of freight quicker.
Yeah, just I think on that as well, Zoran, question without notice. I heard that agility's been sort of put into a bit of a support program with the Defence Department to try and help move cargo around, like those emergency services and medicines and so forth. Is that something you've heard as well?
Definitely. Freight forwarding is a sector that we can't just stay still. A lot of the air freight forwarders are definitely looking for innovative ways. They're chartering, they're helping other freight forwarders to slot charter, share volumes. So in these difficult times, the freight forwarding industry proves again it's an essential service, and it is important that we unite together and provide whatever services available, not only for a commercial business advantage, but also help other businesses to be able to consolidate the goods. At the end of the day, it's important to get these goods to the right people in such crisis.
Yeah, no, it's a really important message that you're saying there, Zoran, is that as an industry, as a community, we really need to all support each other and increase that volume of economies of scale, if you like, to make sure it's feasible and viable for everyone to succeed and survive through this process. I wanted to ask Zoran, so things like these, we hear on the news about the border shutdowns. How does that affect the domestic trade and freight movements around the country with different states shutting their borders? How does that apply to trucks and transport or as you mentioned before, some of the air freight?
Yeah, certainly. At the moment, there are state border closures. All of the states, with an exception to New South Wales and Victoria, have closed the borders. However, having said that, a lot of the transport associations are lobbying government, and there is a confirmation that the borders will be open for freight and logistics. No different to the global borders that you're allowing freight, the domestic supply chain has to operate.
Yep.
We as consumers require the goods to be moved. A lot of the fruits and vegetables from Queensland have to go to other states. So there will be no restriction to freight. There may be some slow processing at the borders, but again, the transport associations are lobbying to find better and more efficient way to move the trucks quicker through those restricted borders. But freight and transport will operate in Australia, I can assure you that, and there's been confirmation from local governments and other trade association bodies.
That's great. What about port congestion and getting cargo that is arriving from overseas? Is there current congestion at the moment? Are we at sort of full capacity? As an essential service, I'm assuming all the workers at the ports and both seaports and airports are still working at normal capacity, or has that been reduced? Is that something you could sort of help us shed some light on?
Yeah, ports and airports are definitely operating. They are also considered essential service. And we have seen a reduction in volume. So from a reduction, we're about a 10% reduction in trade volume at the Australian ports, and similar and more in other parts of the world. So there's no port restrictions apart from the normal crew and pilots screening, the 14 days, on sea to make sure, from the biosecurity type of human intervention. But the ships are allowed to come into the country. There are no restrictions. There is a recent development in Queensland. Ships that come out of South Korea and China, they need to be at sea for 14 days if they have visited those countries before they can berth at Port of Brisbane. But that's the only exception. Ports are operating efficiently. We just need more cargo to come into the country.
Yeah, I think it sounds like that the low volume of cargo that we're experiencing now is because of the impact that China had probably 2 months ago when this outbreak first started and the shutdown over February there. So is that what you're seeing as well? Is that sort of lag between that production? And have you heard that production is coming back coming back online again in China?
Yeah, definitely. The China being the biggest trading nation for Australia has definitely had an impact on volume. However, China is confirming that they're almost up to full production capacity. You will see that the volumes out of China will continue to grow. One of the challenges in China, however, is the capacity of equipment. Empty containers, shipping lines are trying to reposition more empty containers back into the China to be able to service the demand. So it might take some weeks before the ships start to bring in empty containers to meet that extra demand. So in the next few months, we will see a lot more freight coming out of China, certainly.
Good. Okay. Well, hopefully, that all gets back to the local distributors and suppliers so they can get back things out into market, especially obviously the safety gear that we're all looking forward to receiving soon as well. Zoran, what about the CBFCA? I mean, working remotely, working from home, I'm assuming there's a whole range of opportunities now for people in the sector, while they're working at home, is to maybe do some upskill, do some webinars, some courses. Do you guys have anything on the radar that's coming up over the coming weeks or months? Zoran? We might have a technical glitch there. I think Zoran may have frozen. But wanted to ask, obviously it's probably important while we're trying to get Zoran back that the if you go to the cbfca.com.au website, have a look at if they've got any webinars and information sessions up that are available for you to stay up to date while you're working remotely, and actually try and upskill yourself, stay up to date with the latest border control opportunities as well. So it's a great opportunity to try and use this time while you are working remotely to upskill yourself and really see what the industry is doing, because typically most of us are stuck in a bit of a mad, crazy day at the office, whereas now if you're working remotely, there are opportunities to actually try and get back in touch with some of the industry associations, look at some webinars, do some online courses, some training, and that's a really important part. So that is while we're again waiting for Zoran. Yep, great. So I'll just cross back to Zoran now just to wrap that last part of that up. Zoran, sorry mate, we had a bit of a technical glitch. I think everyone's online at the moment, so we have a few hiccups.
Yes, yeah. Our industry sector is geared to operate from home. The freight forwarding sector and the broking sector, the automation, the infrastructure is all there. Workflow, they are able to assist the clients and facilitate trade regardless where they are. A lot of the workforce operates from home and some from work, so trying to maintain that social distance and health and safety of their staff. We as an association will most likely be moved to a bit more online training, getting information to our members through the online platform. We have that platform, and we will continue to share information during these difficult times.
Great.
To keep members informed.
All right, thanks so much, Zoran. Really appreciate you joining us again, keeping us up to date. We'll probably get you back on the show every couple of weeks, just as a quick update as things evolve and change, and maybe more restrictions come in or get lifted. So again, really appreciate your time and joining us again. Stay safe and well, and encourage all the viewers to go to the cbfca.com.au website to stay up to date there and see how they can help your trade and logistics business. So thanks again, Zoran. I appreciate you joining us. For all you viewers, stick around. We're going to go to a short break, but then we've got a very important interview with Nick Henderson from Asialink Business coming up after the break. So stick around and we'll see you soon.
On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Import Export here on Ticker TV, proudly sponsored by the Australian Trade and Logistics Corporation and Ethical Trade Alliance. Just while waiting for our next guest to join remotely, I wanted to remind everyone again that we've got a really important webinar coming up hosted by ATLC and Starboard IT today at 12:30 p.m. It's a free webinar to actually get the most and remote working essentials. So make sure you're doing it safely, securely, not exposing yourself to cyber threat, which unfortunately, with this current situation of everyone working remotely, so many people are vulnerable. So it's a really important free webinar to jump on. There is still some time to get online and actually register for that. You can see the details on screen. Just go to eventbrite.com and look up the Remote Working Essentials webinar and you'll see that there. So make sure if you get a chance, get on that. It's a free webinar for half an hour, quick, short and sharp, and you'll hear some really great tips and advice how to work safely, securely and efficiently while you're working remotely. It's a really important time here in Australia and all around the world. As you heard Zoran previously talk about, supply chain logistics providers are considered as essential services. And it's so important more than ever that we as an industry stick together, as we heard him say, to make sure that we are, one, surviving, but two, making sure that we're getting goods and products around the country from especially the vital, critically important goods like medical and so forth. You know, it really, a lot of this onus falls onto the supply chain providers to keep their customers up to date, maybe to work with them on how we can support importers and exporters through this difficult time, and maybe through supporting them with different payment terms or extended delivery options or some sort of ways around helping them through this as well. At the end of the day, it's in all of our interests to make sure that the supply chain still continues, importers and exporters, businesses still survive, because we rely on them to make sure that our service providers stay in business as well. So it is a really important way that we can do is whatever we can for the industry to band together, help everyone, all the stakeholders across the supply chain as well. So yeah, look, I think there's a whole range of critical points here, and what we're aiming to do with Import Export here on Ticker every week, especially during this crisis, is to make sure you're totally updated and informed with all the latest eventual things. So look, I believe we've got Nick now online. So, sorry, yep, we're just having a few technical issues, but we're about to go to a quick break just to resolve that, and we're back very shortly. Thank you.
On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for your patience. As you can tell, we're all doing everything remotely. I'm in studio, but all of our guests are dialing in remotely during this time. So we're having to, just to make sure that all those are working properly. So thanks for your patience. We've got the real pleasure now of having Nick Henderson from Asialink Business on the show with us. I'm going to get straight into it, Nick. Thanks so much for joining me, and welcome to Import Export.
You're welcome, and good to be with you.
Great. Nick, I want to really get into a whole range of things, but first and foremost, for the viewers, so many people I'm sure have heard of Asialink, but can you tell us about the history and background and the role of Asialink in Australia?
Sure. Asialink is actually an organisation that's been around for 30 years and has really been at the cornerstone of Australia's engagement with Asia over that period, covering education, arts and culture, diplomacy and business, and was founded by the Maya Foundation and the University of Melbourne. Asialink Business, as a part of the Asialink Group, is actually Australia's national centre for Asia capabilities, which is basically supported and funded through the Department of Industry up in Canberra, and where our basic purpose is to build the skills, knowledge and insights, or the capabilities of Australian businesses and the workforce to have good and economic and business outcomes in Asian markets. Yeah. And we were founded on the back of a task force which was linked to Australia in the Asia Century, a white paper, which looked at what are some of the things that are important for businesses to do to enable successful engagement across a number of different areas in Asia. And our organisation really is geared around delivering that through research and information, through connections and insights, through events, and then also through capability building and education and training.
Yeah, I definitely remember the white paper when it came out many years ago, and I wanted to ask some of those examples of the support programs and the initiatives. How do you build that capability through Asialink? And I know that you engage so much with industry, education institutes and government agencies. Are there some examples of some of those support programs that you've done in the past and you're hoping to roll out?
Certainly. So we do a number of different things. So some examples would be on the research and information side or advisory side. We have developed a suite of 15 different country starter packs, which are comprehensive guides into different markets, different Asian markets, and how businesses should operate within those markets. All information all the way from culture through to setting up a business, to understanding supply chains, and many, many other different facets. So that's really a lot of rich information. We also do sort of bespoke research and assisting businesses to build their understanding of Asian markets, understanding industry sectors, understanding opportunities, and then how to navigate and realise those. And some examples on the event side is we run, last year we ran over 70 events and forums around the country, and a lot of those focus on country and industry specific topics. For example, e-commerce, landscapes within Southeast Asia or China, understanding KOLs, or understanding agricultural and food opportunities in different ASEAN markets. So they're kind of very specific things on the events and forums side. And then on the capability development and skills side, we have programs we've developed specifically to build knowledge and competence across building an approach to e-commerce exports in different ASEAN markets, market entry and doing business in China. In the tourism side, leadership programs on building propositions and market approaches deal with and to address the opportunities of the Chinese traveller, working with startups on their strategy formation and ideation for market entry to Asian markets, and working with culturally diverse teams, whether that be virtually or face-to-face, across Asia, but a lot of work that I've been doing with China and specifically Australian organisations that have very large accounts and business with China or have been acquired by Chinese companies and need to work with that cultural dynamic.
Yep, sure. Nick, I know that I've had the privilege of coming to many fantastic Asialink events. How have you, I suppose, adjusted now for the COVID-19 situation with your programs? Are there things like online or webinars, or what are you doing with Asialink Business to sort of to keep out there with the market, the industry, and have you transitioned to some things online with some of these upcoming events and programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as a lot of organisations are dealing with the new reality that we're faced with, we as an organisation are also doing that. But it's really leveraging what we've been doing in the past, because we have done webinars, we've done multi-location webinars, we've done online learning, but it's really taking more of what we do and really then delivering it in a digital format. So we've got events planned and also scheduled, which will be run online, and we are delivering and will continue to offer our capability development programs in an online and interactive format. And as a business, we're working closely with our clients and also listening to the needs of what businesses need, because whilst we're all facing a very challenging time, and so are a lot of Asian markets, we are going to need to start looking at preparation for recovery. And as an organisation, and like yours as well, Lawrence, we're here to support businesses to prepare and to build capability. And obviously that's going to need to be done online.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. I think that's actually leading me to my next question, because obviously it is a challenging time, not just for us in Australia, but right across the world. We rely so heavily on Asia for our economy, but as you just alluded to, it's also a great opportunity to prepare for these new opportunities that are going to emerge out of the ashes, if you like, or rise out of the ashes. So what are the sort of opportunities that you foresee that could come about after the COVID-19 starts to get back to some sort of normality?
Look, I think we're going to see across Asia, we're going to see recovery looking very different. And I think at this stage, with a lot of markets, a lot of the pandemic situation is still unfolding. So, I think we really don't know what a sort of a turning point and what stability and then what growth and return to business as usual looks like at this particular point in time. That being said, we have a lot of markets in Asia with strong fundamentals, strong consumer demand. I think with the suite of and the range of products and services that Australian companies offer, a lot of that is very much aligned to what markets need. If I could just use the example of China. China has turned a corner when it comes to the pandemic. Obviously, there are some issues with inbound people flow from overseas and potential rebound, but on the whole, we're seeing China really starting to recover across a number of different sectors. I think what's going to be driving the opportunities in China are that there are some pretty strong fundamentals in place, and of course there's going to be an impact. There's going to be a huge impact, and there has been, but there are a number of core fundamentals in terms of economic fundamentals, in terms of middle class consumption and how disposable incomes are developing and growing, in terms of the role and importance of digital economies across the way that business operates, but also in terms of consumer behaviour. Yeah. There will be opportunities that will come out of that, and we're already seeing across a number of different sectors starting to show signs through early research of pent-up demand that will enable opportunities for Australian businesses. That being said, China and a lot of Asian markets are challenging and competitive. Yeah. And obviously taking a smart and very well informed and a planned and a well-researched approach is going to be critical at this time. But I think the businesses that really do their homework, engage with ecosystems, service providers, those who are there to support import-export companies, and then really putting a well-considered approach to the market together, and then starting to engage again with partners, with potential customers, etc. We'll start to see the results.
Great. Yeah, I think, Nick, that as you've alluded to there, the consumption is getting back on track now. People are getting back to work in China quite rapidly, and the opportunity for us that I see here in Australia is that the Aussie dollar is is not an all-time low, but it's been at a very low point now, which gives us that added export capability and that incentive for these Asian markets to give Australian products a go. We're obviously always been recognised as a trusted and credible supplier of products, and people love our clean, green, traditional national sort of reputation. But with the exchange rate now at such a low rate, it is an ideal time if you've got the right ability to continue your digital branding, your marketing, and really leverage that into those Asian markets. It's a perfect opportunity to really get into those markets. I wanted to also ask Nick, apart from China, I know you're an expert in China. You head up the China business practice there with Asialink. What are the other markets now that, because they've had some supply chain bottlenecks over the last few months, have you seen a bit of a shift with some other emerging Asian markets as well through Asialink Business? Have there been some new opportunities or new inquiries coming through?
Yeah, look, I think we are seeing a number of the effects on business is different according to category of business, the size of the business, the level of engagement with the market. We're dealing with some mid to large size companies that are still continuing with their market growth engagements and strategy rollout within key Southeast Asia markets. I think the feedback, the resounding feedback that we're getting is, need to stay very, very close to what's going on the ground. There are still export opportunities, and I think the comment that you made, the clean, the green, the quality, those are value propositions. Those are needs from consumer bases across the region that are going to need to be addressed, and there is a demand for those. In particular, at a time when there is such a health issue, those value propositions and those sort of products are going to be even more in demand.
Fantastic.
So I think if you are working with partners on the ground, staying close and to them to get feedback on what's going on in your particular segment, what's going on with demand, what's going on with follow through sales. And then being a little bit dynamic. I think we all need to be dynamic during this time to be reactive to and proactive, I should say, to the opportunities across a number of different Asian nations. But as I mentioned before, we're at different stages of the pandemic in different countries, so things will play out in different ways.
Yeah, fantastic. It's been a real privilege to have you on the show, Nick. I really appreciate those insights, and hopefully we can get you on again as this situation unfolds over the coming months as well, just to stay abreast of how those things are shifting. What's the best way? I think, if it's okay, I'll suggest to the viewers to reach out to asialinkbusiness.com.au, stay abreast of any of these new upcoming programs that are coming up, especially the online ones. And it's a really great, powerful network that you've got with Asialink Business to really support businesses and navigate through this difficult time. So thanks so much, Nick. Really appreciate your time on the show and look forward to having you on again in the coming months.
Thanks, Lawrence. I really appreciate being asked. Really, if there is any way that we can support businesses at this time, we're here to support, and we are confident too that at the other end of this, that there are still huge opportunities within Asian markets.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Nick. Look forward to keeping in touch. Take care.
Thank you.
We're going to go straight now to our next guest, Christian Merrigan. So this is a really important topic. So Christian is the New South Wales branch manager for a recruitment firm who specialises in international trade, supply chain logistics, which is INSIC personnel. And we've asked Christian to join us because of all these job losses, and there's a whole range of fear around the society and the community. But specifically to supply chain logistics, import export. Christian, welcome to Import Export, and looking forward to having a chat about these important topics. Okay.
On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Welcome back, everyone. Again, thanks for your patience. We're just juggling with a few technical issues with all the remote access for our guests. So we're actually going to swap around. We're going to get Raffaele Sellaro, the Managing Director of NYC International Logistics, on the line now, because we wanted to hear, during this time, it's really difficult for, as we've heard, importers and exporters, but it's equally difficult to manage as a freight forwarder. So Raffaele Sellaro, thanks for joining us on Import Export. Okay, well.
On Ticker, this is Import Export with Lawrence Christophels.
Okay, we're back again. Just crossing now to Raffaele Sellaro from NYC International Logistics. Hi, Raffaele, thanks for your patience. Sorry, we're having a few technical issues with all the remote dial-ins. How have you been?
Yeah, good morning, Lawrence. Thanks for having me on the show.
No
we're well, thank you.
A pleasure. Raffaele, please tell me, as a freight forwarder, what are the challenges that and the impact of COVID-19 has had on your business and the forwarding community?
Dramatic impact on our business. Obviously, with China shutting down for a long period of time after China's New to combat the virus, affected us personally, and obviously all our clients who export out of China, and which is only a large majority of freight forwarders.
Yeah, and you may have not seen the previous guest, but we had Nick Henderson from Asialink, and we had Zoran Kostadinoski from CBFCA, and we're thinking that basically China's back in full swing, but obviously that lead time with all that production shut down back in February has really had a major impact on obviously cargo volumes, which impacts you guys as forwarders. But is it your understanding as well that factories are pretty much back on track in full swing, or is it sort of ramping up there? What's your sort of ear to the ground back in China?
Yeah, look, the situation the last few weeks has been positive out of China. We've seen the backlogs being removed, and it's pretty much business as usual out of China now. We believe that the issue is now with Australia, not with China so much. The capacity, we've been informed by shipping lines over the next few weeks will drop. So, with blank sailings, meaning less vessels and space availability, that will be the challenge over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Right. Okay. And Raffaele, what about, obviously the COVID-19 has now spread. China's actually recovering, but now all these other markets, especially other key trading markets like Europe, Italy, Germany, France, even the US, how is that starting to impact now? Are we going to have that same sort of slowdown? I'm assuming that we'll have that same situation that we had in China. Lesser impact because the trade volumes are less from those markets, but are you experiencing that as well now?
Yeah, absolutely. With the shipping lines still operating out of Europe as normal. However, with the impacts of the total shutdowns out of Italy, for example, up to the 3rd of April, non-essentials, factories that can't operate, it's had a huge impact. Essentials like food stuff are still obviously operating out of Italy and I guess throughout Europe. So at this stage, just over the next few weeks, it's obviously ever change every day. So at the moment, we just work with clients, suppliers, obviously as agents, to ensure that we obviously providing our clients and importers and even exporters with the up-to-date information. Yeah,
well, I was going to ask about that, Raf. How are the importers and exporters feeling? I know you're doing a great job trying to keep them up to date, but obviously I'm assuming they're quite scared. They're all trying to protect their business. And how are they optimistic that this is going to recover quickly as an exporter, as we heard previously with the other guests, that with the Aussie dollar being low, it could be a great time for them. Are they feeling, what's your sort of insight about how they're feeling, importers and exporters at the moment?
I'm talking to clients every day. There's still a lot of positivity. Everyone knows that we'll get over this. There's no doubt of that. But when is the question? And I guess as a community, as friends and family, we just need to keep talking and staying positive through this time. There's a lot of nervous people, especially in the food industry, with restaurants, cinemas, pubs, cafes closing, and us personally being involved in a lot of that sort of commodity. There's a lot of people are quite nervous. Again, all we can do is just stay positive and talk to each other and support where we can, and that's what we need to do as a community. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Raf. Can I just ask, we've got to wrap up in a minute, but what's your sort of advice at the moment for importers and exporters? What would you suggest to them it's important because we're all working remotely from home, and obviously a lot of their information and data, hopefully they can take with them remotely, but any tips and advice you'd give to importers and exporters right now while they're going through this challenge here in Australia?
Yeah, I would just say speak to your freight forwarder, customs broker or logistics provider and ask questions. That's what we're here for. And we're here to support the Australian community. We're all in this together, and sometimes it takes an event, as we are currently experiencing, to understand the power of community. So just support each other.
All right, thanks so much, Raffaele. Look, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on the show. It's been overdue, and we're going to get you on again very soon. But stay safe, mate. All the best over there in WA, and thank you for sharing insight as a freight forwarder and your tips and advice for importers and exporters. So we'll definitely get you back on the show in a couple of weeks as well.
Thanks, Lars, for having me, and wish you well as well. Be safe.
Likewise, take care. We're going to go straight to Christian Merrigan now from InSync Personnel. Apologies, we had a bit of hiccups, as I said earlier. But Christian, I'm going to kick straight into it, mate. Obviously, you're on the on the coalface of jobs, talking to employers, employees. What's the impact of COVID-19? What are you hearing, and what are you experiencing there?
Yeah, look, mate, I think it's hit everyone, and obviously hit everyone quite early, I guess, in the international supply chain side of things. Obviously, restrictions coming out of China a lot earlier than I suppose anything was sort of seen locally. So, with such a strong market out of China, inbound and outbound, not even considering that transshipment side of things. I think obviously staff is very affected. The staff side of things is very affected, and something that we're obviously on the forefront of. But that I suppose that is a direct cost, a direct effect of the cost of imports and exports going up. Buyer, seller, and consumer. There's really no business that hasn't been affected.
And Christian, obviously we've seen on the news about the major job losses in retail and hospitality. From a logistics, transport, supply chain, broader spectrum, as we've heard with the other guests during the show today, that that's still an essential service. Are you experiencing job losses? I mean, obviously freight forwarders have really hurt over February because of those volumes that essentially just dried up from China. But and other things are back on track. Are you seeing job losses, or are you seeing things pretty much business as usual?
Yeah, certainly. The industry's been affected, Lawrence. I think definitely. The challenge is, holding off, I guess, on redundancies if possible, or, we're talking to a lot of employers that are trying the days per week. I guess the focus is on the short-term fix, but saying that, there's no real light at the end of the tunnel in terms of, when do we know is this going to finish? So we know we're going to need staff. We know it's going to get busier. We know it's going to be a very big peak season, but, the challenge is to be able to afford to pay these people on a weekly, monthly basis, and not really having a forecast of when things are going to get better is very challenging. So, I think obviously we have seen that, but then also I suppose on the positive side of things, we've had a few conversations with some clients with regards to temps. Obviously not being able to forecast, it's a good time to have a temp. It's not on that on the client's books, and they can sort of, I suppose, turn it on and turn it off whenever they need be.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, the flexibility and the need for flexibility both with employers and employees, and it's a real challenging time for everyone. But as you said yourself, Christian, I think we do know from experience that once this does get back to normal, there'll be a huge surge, a huge spike. Everyone's going to want their product yesterday. So
Yep.
it's important to maintain that continuity of staff because they've got the knowledge base of the clients, the products, the processes. So it is a real challenge. What else do you think the government could be doing, or as an industry, what could we be doing from what you see for employers and employees? Is there anything that, as a wish list you'd like to see?
Yeah, I think, Lawrence, probably the most recent focus has been on ensuring that the government keeps, the whole supply chain open. I think that's the most important thing, obviously, for businesses where it can be done, and also staff. I mean, businesses that can stay open, trade, it's important for them to do so, and ensuring that the government allows that to happen through, potentially further lockdowns as, days and weeks go past. Obviously, things are getting tighter. So just making sure that if that does happen and does escalate, that, all services are able to continue, I wouldn't say as normal, but are able to continue.
Yeah. And the other thing, Christian, I wanted to ask about, it's so important. Yes, it's important to have your business processes and remote working really working seamlessly, but what about the cultural impact? What about, I know from a logistics perspective, you really enjoy the camaraderie that you have with people in the warehouse, with the office staff, the truck drivers, and when you're remote, you lose all that. So what sort of tips and advice would you give to both employees and employers? Do you suggest, social drink catch-ups like we're seeing, that they can do stuff remotely and just have some fun and quirky times to keep the culture within the business? What would you recommend there?
Yeah, definitely, Lawrence. It's obviously important to keep that communication open and, have that sort of, have that banter between your colleagues that you do miss out on, because, it is very hard to focus at home for some people. This is all very new to a lot of, I think, the working community. It is a big adjustment, and, some people do it very well. Others have, distractions, obviously things like schooling, potentially being closed moving forward and children kept at home. It's, that's a challenge in itself. So I think, always staying online, staying focused, obviously using, mediums like this to communicate with each other. And I suppose that management side of things, just making sure that not so much you're keeping an eye on your staff, but have those regular, structured, communication channels open all the time, so that if someone needs you, you still are available. So I think that's very important in times of, in need, and also, people just need to get on and hopefully do their job as best as they can from home.
Fantastic. Look, it's been a real important insight at this challenging time. A lot of people are really nervous and insecure about their financial, economic situation and their futures. So thanks so much for joining us, Christian. I think we all agree that even once we pass this hurdle, things will probably be changed forever. There'll probably be a lot of remote working. People will adapt, and even employers might think, okay, well, this could work in certain scenarios. So I'm sure there's going to be a whole evolving space from a point of view of employers, employers, and how they collaborate in the future and renegotiate opportunities as we overcome this critical situation. So thanks so much, Christian. Appreciate your patience too with some of the technical issues, and we sort of shifted a few things around. But thanks again, Matt, and we'll look forward to chatting again very soon.
Sounds good, Lawrence. Appreciate you having us on.
Great. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Appreciate some of your patience. I know it's been a challenge. We've got everyone dialing in from different states, different organisations. So thanks for your patience and understanding with that. Hopefully you've got some great information to stay up to date and to inspire you, give you some confidence, and really keep you abreast of all the changes as this situation unfolds. Stay tuned. Every week we're going to bring you great speakers and more industry experts to make sure that you've got everything up to date with everything here. So thanks again. Look forward to seeing you next week.
As coronavirus impacts Australia's small and medium businesses, you can rely on Ticker for the latest breaking news and reliable information.
From 8 a.m. every morning, we tell you what's happening right around the world.
We're looking at solving this problem.
We can turn the tide.
This is not just a story about the markets.
None of us, you and I and many, many others have ever seen in our lifetime.
There are real people and real businesses impacted.
Landlords must come to the party. They must negotiate with their tenants now.
We speak directly to the people who are on the front line right around the world, so you can best prepare for what could happen next.
Do it soon, don't wait, because you will only make the situation worse.
And from 10 a.m. we bring you a special report with breaking news from our resources right around the country.
There has been a lot of confusion, mostly regarding, of course, school closures.
We've made sure every ticker program is dedicated to helping you and your business get through and survive this crisis, from tech to innovation.
This is Innovate Today.
You're going to see new jobs created, whether it's in technology, marketing.
You risk creating a raft of mental health issues as well.
Ticker cuts through with bold business. We're listening to small and medium businesses right around the country because you are such an important part of this story. 20 grand ain't going to do much.
Ain't going to do much, but there's always things changing. Last week was 50% of your PAYG.
We're talking about actually reinventing yourself or your business.
Head to our website, download our apps. We're live on Twitter, or of course you can watch us on Amazon Alexa. Ticker is bold business helping you to get through.